She's watching you. She thinks about you, but she will never reach out. And the reason why will shake you to your core, not because she's over you, but because silence lets her hold on without having to risk anything. To her, reaching out feels like surrender, and surrender means admitting she no longer controls the emotional frame. So she watches quietly, not out of love, but out of habit. Not to reconnect, but to confirm she still matters, and you, still waiting, still hoping, become a mirror. She checks just to see if her reflection still exists. But here's the truth no one tells you. Every time she almost breaks the silence, her ego reminds her why she started it. She doesn't need closure, she needs control, and the longer you wait for a signal, the more power you give away. In this video, I'll reveal 6 brutal truths about why she's watching but staying silent. More importantly, I'll show you how to stop orbiting her silence and start owning yours. Like the video and subscribe to Stoic Station, where stillness becomes strength and peace becomes power. Drop a comment below. I don't react to silence, I rise through it. Let your voice be a reminder to others that waiting is not strength. Evolving is. And here's what's next. Because once you stop needing her attention to feel seen, you become the one she never stops thinking about. She's watching, but only to stay in control. She didn't stop watching because she's moved on. She didn't vanish because she's healed. She watches because it's the safest way to keep control, emotional control, psychological control, silent control. You're not just a memory to her, you're a mirror she still wants to own. This isn't longing. This isn't unresolved love. This is the endowment effect at work, the psychological tendency to overvalue something simply because we once felt ownership over it. To her, you were once hers, and that label doesn't disappear just because the relationship ended. So now she watches quietly, methodically, not out of curiosity, but out of a desire to confirm that her place in your mind remains unshaken. She doesn't want you to know she's watching, because the moment she becomes visible, the illusion begins to break. If she reaches out, she risks exposing the very vulnerability she's been trying to avoid. She risks losing her upper hand. So she hides in the digital shadows, scrolling your feed, analyzing your silence, replaying old memories, all while giving you nothing in return. She won't say she misses you, because that would mean surrendering emotional ground. She won't call, because that would be stepping into the uncertainty she fears more than your absence. So instead, she holds on to the one strategy that has always made her feel safe: distance. With eyes wide open, she checks your stories, not to reconnect, but to reassure herself that she still matters, that you're still thinking, that you haven't moved on without her. And every time you post something that hints you're still emotionally tethered, whether it's a sad quote, a nostalgic photo, or a silent status update, she breathes easier, because it means her influence hasn't faded. It means she can stay silent a little longer. The truth is, as long as she believes she still lives in your thoughts, she feels no urgency to reach out. Why would she? She has what she wants: relevance without risk, power without participation. But that illusion only survives as long as you feed it. The moment you stop posting for her to see, the moment you stop reacting, stop watching back, stop existing in a way that orbits her memory, that's when the balance shifts. That's when doubt creeps in, not for you, but for her. Because suddenly, she's not sure anymore. Not sure if she still has space in your heart. Not sure if her silence is still working. Not sure if you finally let go. And that uncertainty, that's the very thing she's been trying to avoid. You see, control isn't about having someone. It's about believing you could have them at any time. And when you remove that belief, not with words, but with quiet, unshakable absence, she begins to feel what you once felt. That slow, hollow ache of being replaced. She didn't stop watching, not because she's over it, but because watching is her way of holding on without having to risk rejection. And if she senses you've truly detached, if she sees that you no longer need her gaze to feel whole, that's when her silence will finally cost her something. That's when the panic begins. Not because you're gone, but because she knows you're not coming back. Her silence is a test, not a farewell. Most men misunderstand silence. They mistake it for closure, assume it means she's moved on, healed, forgotten. They try to interpret her absence as a final chapter, when in reality, it's just the beginning of a new game, one that's far more psychological than emotional. You see, women often play chess while men are stuck playing checkers. And her silence, that's not an emotional void. It's a move, a calculated, quiet test. She's not done with you. She's watching you, measuring you, waiting to see what you'll do when left in the dark. Will you panic? Will you start scrolling her feed? Will you watch her stories and like her pictures as if they mean something? Will you break no contact just to remind her you still exist? Because if you do, she wins. That's what her silence is about: confirmation, not reconciliation. She's not trying to get you back. She's trying to prove she still has you. And if you fall into the trap, if you reach out, if you react, if you chase, you give her exactly what she's testing for: proof that she still controls the emotional frame. This isn't about love. This is about leverage. When she goes quiet, it isn't the ending most men believe it to be. It's a psychological mirror, one that reflects your strength or your desperation back to her. Most men don't see it. They feel the absence, panic at the silence, and begin doing exactly what she's waiting for: chasing, pleading, looking for signs, trying to fix something that was designed to be endured, not solved. But the man who passes the test doesn't flinch. He doesn't explain his silence. He doesn't post subtle quotes hoping she'll notice. He doesn't double tap a post from 3 months ago just to show he's still around. He does nothing. Not because he doesn't feel, but because he's learned to master his response. That's the essence of Stoic discipline. Not the absence of emotion, but the refusal to let emotion dictate your action. She's watching. Remember? She's observing whether your value crumbles without her attention, whether your identity still relies on her validation, whether you'll orbit her world just to feel seen. And when you don't, when you hold your frame, when you remain still, when you walk without signaling, the silence starts to shift. What was once strategy becomes uncertainty. What was once a test becomes regret. You see, she expected you to fold. She expected you to reach out. She expected you to fail. And when you don't, it disorients her, because now, for the first time, she's not sure if you're still under her influence. She's not sure if you're still waiting. She's not sure if she still matters in your world. That's when her mind turns on itself. She begins wondering, did I miscalculate? Did I push too far? Has he really moved on? Is he becoming someone who no longer needs me? And that shift, that subtle internal collapse, is where power transfers back to you. Not through words, not through games, but through stillness, through self-possession, through your refusal to be baited into emotional reaction. This is where most men fail. They think strength is loud. They think winning her back means saying the right thing, doing the grand gesture, proving their worth. But in reality, real power is quiet. It's presence without pursuit, clarity without chaos. And ironically, that's what she was testing for all along. Whether you're the man who breaks under pressure or the one who transforms in silence, her silence is not goodbye. It's a riddle. It's a waiting room. It's a mirror. So let her sit with the echo she created. Let her wonder why you're not watching her anymore. Let her notice your absence and question her decision. Because the moment she sees you're no longer emotionally available is the moment she realizes what she risked losing. And if that realization comes too late, that's not your problem. That's her lesson. You've passed the test, not by outsmarting her, but by mastering yourself. And that's what she never expected. So don't confuse her silence with closure. Don't mistake distance for disinterest. Remember, when a woman truly wants you, she makes it known. But when she's silent, it's not the end. It's the beginning of your chance to rise. She fears losing her power, not losing you. Here's a truth most men aren't ready to face. If she was truly afraid of losing you, she would have never let you go in the first place. She wouldn't have risked distance. She wouldn't have chosen silence. She wouldn't have tested your absence, because when someone genuinely fears losing something precious, they hold on tighter, not looser. But that's not what this is. This isn't about heartbreak. It's not about longing. It's about leverage, about control, about knowing she still has an emotional thread wrapped around your mind. And every time you hesitate, react, or overthink in response to her silence. She feels it. That's what she misses. Not the love, not the laughter, not even the closeness. What she misses is knowing that you still bend just a little in her direction. This is the psychology of loss aversion in its most intimate form. We don't always fear the loss of the thing itself. We fear the loss of our ability to influence it. And that's what she's holding on to. She doesn't necessarily want you back. What she wants is the ability to pull you back whenever she chooses. So when she posts that ambiguous quote, when she suddenly appears with a new guy, when she uploads that picture designed to provoke just the right kind of tension, it's not a cry for reconciliation. It's a probe, a calibrated signal sent into the emotional air just to see if you're still tuned into her frequency. Because if you are, she feels safe. Not because she wants to rebuild the connection, but because it means she hasn't lost her grip. She doesn't test you out of cruelty. She tests you because it's instinctive. It's how she confirms that she still holds some unspoken influence over your emotional state. If she can make you wonder, make you wait, make you spiral into overanalysis, she doesn't need to reach out. She already has what she wants, the upper hand. And as long as you're still there, watching, hoping, maybe even posting cryptic messages of your own, she won't move. Because silence, when she believes you're still attached, is power. Power. She doesn't want to give up. And why should she? If you're emotionally available in her imagination, if she knows she could reach out and still find you waiting, then she gets all the reassurance with none of the risk. But here's the shift she never expects. When you stop playing the part, when your energy no longer revolves around hers, when you stop reacting to every signal, every subtle manipulation, every test, when your silence is no longer a response, it becomes your reality. That's when her control starts to dissolve. Because power, when it's not reinforced, fades. If she posts and you don't respond, if she tests and you don't move, if she waits and you don't reach, she's left with the one thing she spent all this time trying to avoid: uncertainty. And that uncertainty isn't about your love. It's about her diminishing control over it. Now, she has to ask herself the same questions you once did. Is he still thinking about me? Did I push too far? Did I lose him? And unlike before, there's no confirmation, no reaction, no sign of emotional life from the man who once spiraled in her orbit. That's when the illusion breaks. Because a man who is no longer available, not physically, not digitally, not emotionally, is a man who cannot be managed. And that terrifies her more than losing the relationship ever did. It's not your presence she truly misses. It's her power over your presence. That's what hurts when you disappear for real. That's what rattles her when her silence no longer works. She stayed silent, not because she didn't feel anything, but because she felt confident she could afford to. She assumed you would still be there, that you would still care, that you would eventually cave, and remind her that she still mattered. But when you walk away, not in anger, not to provoke, but in absolute peace, her entire framework crumbles. Because now, for the first time, she realizes she may not have control after all. And that realization is devastating. Understand this? If she was genuinely afraid of losing you, her silence would have ended the moment she sensed you slipping away. She would have acted, she would have risked vulnerability, but she didn't. Because what she really feared wasn't your absence. It was losing the emotional leverage she once had. And the only way she truly feels that loss is when you stop giving her anything to control. When your silence isn't a tactic but a truth. When your detachment isn't passive but complete. That's when the game ends. Not for you, for her. For if she wanted you back, you'd already know. No woman hides from the man she truly wants. That's a truth many men ignore because it hurts more to accept it than to keep hoping. So they cling to the illusion, romanticizing mixed signals, convincing themselves that silence means she still cares. Strategy and interpreting every small digital gesture like it's a breadcrumb leading somewhere meaningful. But it isn't. If she wanted to be in your life again, she wouldn't be hiding behind ambiguity. She would show up fully, clearly, directly. There would be no cryptic quotes, no passive likes, no watching your stories while saying nothing. If a woman truly values a man, she doesn't care about looking vulnerable. She fears losing him more than she fears rejection. She will call, she will reach out, she will make it known that the door she once closed is open again. Because when a woman knows she wants you, pride becomes irrelevant, timing becomes secondary, her effort becomes obvious. So if she's still silent after all this time, stop lying to yourself. You're not her priority. You're not the one she's afraid of losing. You're the placeholder she keeps around in her mind, a safety net for her ego, a just-in-case option she wants to believe is still there. She doesn't need to fight for you because she assumes you're still emotionally available. And every time you analyze her silence, instead of accepting it, you reinforce that assumption. That's why it's so important to stop assigning hope to inaction. A woman's true desire is never hidden. It's revealed through behavior. If she's done nothing, that is your answer. And a man who knows his worth doesn't chase someone who had every opportunity and still chose silence. He doesn't wait for a maybe. He doesn't sit around hoping that her hesitation means she's struggling with her feelings. Because even if she is, she's not choosing you. And that's all that matters. The harsh truth is, people make time, space, and effort for what they truly want. So if she's not calling, not showing up, not doing anything to repair what was lost, then the message is clear. She doesn't want it badly enough. And the man who truly values himself doesn't try to change that. He honors it. He lets go, not out of anger, but out of self-respect. Because at the end of the day, the woman who once had you and let you walk away has already spoken through her silence. And if she hasn't run after you by now, it's not because she's unsure. It's because she's certain you'll still be there. Don't be. You don't win by responding. You win by rising. There's a moment in every man's healing journey when he has to make a choice between reacting and rising. Most don't even realize that's the fork in the road they're standing at. They think the win comes from getting her back, from proving their worth, from making her realize what she lost. But that's not the real victory. That's still just a response. That's still making her the center of the story. The real win isn't about her at all. It's about you, about reclaiming your center, about standing tall in the quiet space where your peace no longer depends on anyone's presence or permission. This isn't about ego. It's about alignment. Because the man who's aligned doesn't need applause or validation. He moves with clarity, even when no one is watching. Too many men lose themselves in the aftermath of a breakup. Not just emotionally, but spiritually. They scroll through her feed like it's a lifeline, read old messages like they're sacred texts, relive conversations, hoping to find the moment everything shifted. They don't realize that every second they do this, they're leaking energy, bleeding purpose, handing away fragments of themselves to a past that's no longer evolving. You don't reclaim your power by explaining your pain. You reclaim it by redirecting your focus, by building the version of you that doesn't need her to come back. Because, let's be honest, are you growing right now? Or just hoping? Are you creating something that will outlive this heartbreak? Or are you waiting for her to notice that you're still wounded? Every time you respond, whether by checking her profile, posting for her to see, or thinking about what she might be thinking, you're still orbiting her gravity. And that's not power. That's dependence in disguise. You're not detached. You're just quietly waiting. And she can feel it. But the man who chooses to rise instead of respond sends a signal far louder than any message. He's not saying I'm better without you out of pride. He's proving it through peace, through presence, through the calm, grounded strength of a man who no longer seeks to be chosen because he's already chosen himself. This doesn't mean you feel nothing. It means your actions are no longer dictated by your wounds. It means you've stopped making her the measure of your worth. And that kind of presence, the kind that doesn't chase, doesn't perform, doesn't need to be seen, to feel secure, is something she can't influence. It's something she remembers because she can't manipulate a man who's already whole. Ask yourself, who are you becoming right now? Are you the man who waits for closure, or the man who builds something so solid that no closure is even needed? She may never apologize. She may never come back. She may never even understand what she meant to you. But none of that has the power to stop you unless you give it permission. And that's the ultimate shift. When you stop responding to what hurt you and start responding to what's calling you forward, when you stop fighting to be remembered and start rising to be unshakable. You don't win by getting her attention. You win by becoming someone who doesn't need it, someone who walks in quiet strength, because his value no longer depends on being understood, forgiven, or chosen. That's the man she never forgets, not because he begged to be remembered, but because he didn't need to be. Disappear with dignity and become her deepest regret. There's a quiet kind of power in the man who walks away without noise. He doesn't do it to punish her. He doesn't do it to spark guilt or to draw attention. He disappears because he's finally done trading his peace for proximity. And when a man leaves, not in anger, in desperation, but with clarity, that's when everything begins to shift. She expected your silence to be temporary. She believed it was a reaction, not a transformation. She thought you'd eventually fold, respond to her cues, or break the distance with one last attempt to be understood. But when she scrolls and sees nothing, no updates, no breadcrumbs, no emotional signals, something unsettles her. Because now, the silence she once used as a tool is being used against her, only this time. You're not trying to win. You've already left the game. What haunts her isn't your absence, it's the dignity in it. You didn't beg. You didn't retaliate. You didn't spiral into self-pity or broadcast your growth. You simply vanished from her world, not as a move, but as a return to your own. And that's what she never anticipated, that the man she thought she could pause and resume at will, has chosen a life that no longer includes her. She starts to feel it in small moments when she posts something designed to get a reaction and gets none, when her indirect quotes go unanswered, when her presence no longer commands your attention. That's when her mind begins to reach backward, replaying what she once had and no longer does. Not because you reminded her, but because you stopped needing to. That's the mark of a man who's healed. He doesn't come back to prove a point. He becomes the man who no longer needs to. And that absence, clean, strong, unapologetic, is what begins to press against her deepest regrets. Because now she's the one sitting in silence, wondering what she lost. She's the one overthinking, not knowing if she could get you back, even if she tried. You don't haunt her by shouting what she did wrong. You haunt her with the realization that she can't access the man you've become. Because true stoicism isn't about suppressing emotion. It's about mastering it. It's about holding your line when everything in you wants to be understood, and instead choosing to grow. When no one's clapping, you didn't walk away to be chased. You walked away to become whole. And when she finally realizes you were the chapter she can't reopen, that's when you become unforgettable. Not because you demanded to be remembered, but because you gave her nothing to erase. Let me speak directly to the men who needed to hear every word of this. If you're in that quiet space now where she's watching but saying nothing, where silence feels heavier than words, understand something simple but crucial. This isn't about what she's doing. It's about how you respond to what she's not doing. In these moments, most men start chasing meaning. They wait for signs. They confuse stillness with hope. But what I've shown you is this. Her silence is rarely about love. It's about leverage. She's not trying to come closer. She's trying to confirm she still has power. But the moment you stop feeding that illusion, the moment your silence becomes self-possession rather than reaction, everything begins to shift. So here's the life lesson. Stop asking if she still cares. Start asking if you're still betraying yourself by waiting to find out. You don't need to prove anything to her. The only thing worth proving is to yourself that you can hold your center, that you can choose peace over reaction, that you can rebuild your life so deeply, so silently, that even she wouldn't recognize the man she once underestimated. And when that day comes, you won't want her back. You'll want your freedom more. That's when you've won. That's when you've risen. That's when you become unforgettable. Not because she chose you again, but because you finally chose yourself. If this spoke to you, don't just scroll. Like the video and subscribe to Stoic Station. Then drop a comment below. I no longer beg to be seen. I've already chosen myself. Let's remind more men of their worth, their power, and their choice to rise without needing anyone's validation.